Hello folks, how's it going out there in YouTube land? Anyways, put this little sword together and used only a grinder and a file today to get it to this stage where I'm at. And kind of picked my own style of sword. I sort of like the small sword, but the small sword is just kind of a thrust weapon, and I wanted something that could slash too. So this, and it's even got a fuller, as you can see. It's kind of a combination of a small sword and a miniature long sword, with kind of a tip, looks like a little bit of a rapier. Lord knows what my handle's going to look like, but I basically just found an old leaf spring out there in the iron pile, and decided, you know what, I'm just going to give this a shot. So, and as you know, leaf springs are curved. I'll show you a little bit in the video how I straighten that out. And so just basically whipped out the old ankle grinder and put a blade on it, and away I went. And this whole operation probably took me, to cut it out, maybe took me about 15 minutes and 2 blades, I would say. So it wasn't too bad. And then of course I spent all the rest of the day grinding on it. But the measurements basically was a 1/2 inch at the tip, and what was it, about 1 inch at the base, a little over 1 inch at the base of the sword. And just made as straight a taper as I could. I was working on a curved leaf spring, and the length of it overall was 36 inches. So by the time I cut the handle out, it's going to give me a blade of about 28 inches ish. And that was just about the right size that I wanted. I wanted the small sword look, and I think I got pretty close to it, as you'll see. But I got the little tang cut out here, and so the next step, I'm basically just going to clean the rust off of it and take it out and straighten it. And I was worried while I was straightening it that I was going to take all the temper out, and I did in fact take some temper out. I know I did. I had to have. I got it kind of a dull red and bent it, to get it straight. But as you'll see, it retained its springiness, and that's kind of what I wanted. I was afraid I was going to have to anneal it and then do the tempering process all over again, which would have entailed me making some kind of a fire pit with the blower, and to be honest, it was a little bit more involved than I had actually wanted to do. And so I just took my acetylene torch and just heated it up slowly along the length to about a dull red and straightened it out, and I got it pretty straight. I didn't get it perfect, but I ground out most of the little ripples and undulations, if you will. So basically, I just went slowly here. It didn't take much pressure. I just threw that cage on the ground, and I was able to stick portions of it through there and actually bend it. It was a pretty quick process, and like I said, it did wind up annealing it somewhat, but not so much that I'm gonna be all that concerned about it. As you'll see here, it has a lot of spring retained, and I heated the whole thing red hot, and as you can see here, I'm trying to actually straighten it, thinking it was softer than it was, and it was quite a bit. I didn't get it to budge at this point. What was there was there, and I bent it as far as I dared, and it just wouldn't bend, which is a good thing, because in the future, the one thing I didn't want to happen is for during use this thing to actually take a set. This is going to actually be a self-defense weapon, believe it or not, for my wife. She does a lot of hiking. She carries her pistol with her, and she just wanted something that she could have as like a deterrent. She could pull it out, and I suggested a sword, just kind of one day, just thinking, she's never going to go for that. And And she goes, yeah, I want a sword just like that Ariola on, you know, Game of Thrones, because she watched the whole series, and she was, you know, the little pokey thing that Ariel or whatever her name was. She just showed me the clip of the sword, and I thought it was pretty cool, and I had to watch the Men at Arms or the Forged in Fire, whatever show that is, where they were making one. And it looked pretty fancy and pretty involved. This was going to be totally utilitarian. You know, my purpose was just to make something that was actually quite useful. Like I said, had some slashing ability if needed. Sharpened on both ends. The tip, I wound up making it kind of a rapier, where it was just sharpened on one end, so it was sharp. It was a double-edged all the way to the end, to about the last 3 or 4 inches, and then it became just a single edge at the very tip. Actually, more of a triangular, you know, more of a thrust type tip. And so anyways, I'm just getting the highs and the lows here. I just sight down it, and I could see the wrinkles, and I would just mark where the wrinkles were, and I'd just lay my grinder on there. Actually, I guess I'm cutting a fuller in here, but so the fuller was not as hard to put in as I had imagined it would be. I had actually thought that this was really going to give me some headache. I just drew a line down the center of the sword and literally just went slow with the grinder and got a little line started, and then just went over it and over it, made it deeper, and then I would kind of cock my grinder to the side a little bit. I'd go one way and then I'd go the other way, trying to make it as even as possible. Of course, there was some, you know, you look down it and it wasn't 100% straight, but it was straight enough where I could get a file later on, and actually ran like a rat tail file down that groove and wound up straightening it out and made it look pretty good, actually. But so I mean, all in all, I mean, the grinding part probably took me about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and then the filing, I'm gonna need to do a lot more filing here. I'm just actually putting the edges, you know, the rough edges on the blade itself. It just didn't take that long to grind this thing out. I had expected it to be a lot worse than what it actually was. So you can imagine I was somewhat pleasantly surprised when it went as quickly as it did. But still a lot of work left to do on this thing. I'm gonna have a part 2, probably a part 3. You know, of course, the actual polishing of it takes probably the longest. I'm hoping to mechanize that somewhat to cut down on the time, but we'll see how that all works out. And so, you know, I'm just kind of draw filing it, and I did quite a bit of draw filing for several hours, just working like crazy to get it all straightened out. But as you can see, it turned out pretty good, and still a lot of work left to do. But stay tuned for part 2, part 3. Hey, hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and share this video. I'd really appreciate that. Trying to grow this channel, and I need your guys' help. So thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.